Thank you very much. We start with the third class of the project management. And before we discuss the feasibility study or feasibility analysis of the projects today, we would like to see the progress of the discussions we had in the last lecture. And there was a small assignment we will also discuss for a few minutes. And then we will switch to the new lecture. Okay, so we discussed last time the PMI approach of project management. Anybody in the class who would like to comment on the PMI approach, even from your notes, doesn't matter. PMI stands for Project Management Institute, and we discussed this is the largest project management education and research body in the world. And they offer different kind of certification, about 12 or more. And one of the most commonly adopted and widely used project management certification is called PMP, which stands for Project Management Professional. And as of today, there are more than 1 million or so PMPs in the world. So what is special about the approach of PMI? Anyone in the class who would like to comment on it? Or how it differs?
So it's primarily focused on public sector projects only?
No, it's not actually. You have to keep in mind that when we talk about the project management approach, there is no difference between public or private sector, because any project we do with the public or private sector would have its own objectives, its constraints of time, cost, and quality and scope. It will have some end user stakeholders. So the public sector might be having some rules and regulations, but generally the project management is a approach or as a science or art will remain the same one way or the other way. So how do we define the project management approach of PMI?
So it's how the project has to be done. It has the 5 process and the 10 knowledge areas of
Yes.
PMI.
So this approach, the first and important thing, that PMI is the most widely and globally used approach for project management, and it is used across the world in all parts of the world, one way or the other way. The second, we discussed that the largest number of certification in the project management exists in the PMI, and is more than 1 million now. And they offer different kind of certification. And third, which you have mentioned, that this approach is based on 5 processes and 10 knowledge areas. And this approach is contained in a book, and this book is called Project Management Body of Knowledge. And that body of knowledge is basically the approach which is coming from the historical project management approaches, then the environmental context of the projects, then some rules, regulations, or some best practices, and also finally the management techniques. So 4 or 5 things are combined together to have a very narrow definition of the PMBOK, our project management body of knowledge. And this is a matter of fact, a book or guide or whatever you call it, is a registered name of PMBOK, which is the one of the largest widely used book for the project managers. Now, when we talk about the 5 processes, what are these processes and what does it mean? Anybody in the class? What are the 5 processes?
The 5 processes here is initially we are initiating such transition is got it from. Second is planning of project. Third is sorry execution. Fourth is controlling, and last one is the closing of project.
So,
Processes.
yes, I told you last time that we need not to confuse between the project life cycle and the project processes, because within the same knowledge area you can have some processes, but normally for any activity we do in the project, we may be doing 2, 3, or all of the 5 processes. For example, initiation, which means that the authorization of a process. For example, uh, how would you start the procurement or initiate the procurement? And then the planning, that is another process that when we do any kind of activity in the project, we need to plan for that. We need to have our planning, the resources, the timeline, and all these. And then once we are doing it, then we execute. Then the process of execution may involve different kinds of decisions. And then while we are executing a process, remember, I'm not using a phase here. You have to be very clear that I'm using the word process time and again. So process can be at any stage of the project. For any stage of the project, you can have the process. Uh, so while we are doing a process, then we are trying to monitor and control and see that whether the way we had planned a process, we are going according to that or not. And once the process has been completed, we close it officially. And I gave an example of how we do these 5 processes in the procurement. For example, uh, how would we initiate the procurement process? Certainly, when the project is approved, when we have the fund available, then we would start the procurement process. And for that, we need to have the planning, how we procure, plan the procurement process. And then once we are planning and we are developing the different documents and then we decide that what kind of procurement we have to do this year. Then finally, we go for the execution, in which we invite the bids. We select the bid, we award the bid, we even go for the agreements. And while we are doing that, we are monitoring and controlling the planning, the procurement process, to see that if there is any change or any change in specification or number of the items or deliverables, then how would we control it? And finally, once the procurement process is completed, we may certify that this is completed. We have the testing processes, we have the provisional testing, we have the final testing, and so on. So the processes within a project activity or within a project phase maybe having a number of some time you have 2 or 3 processes, even sometime you have 1 or 2 processes, but you should broadly understand that what we mean by process. The second part of the PMBOK we discussed were the knowledge areas, and the knowledge areas are basically we understand that for a good project manager, you have to be having expertise in 10 knowledge areas. And these 10 knowledge areas are, we discussed last time that 4 are core areas, 1 is integration, and then 5 are support areas. Achaji, can anybody discuss about these knowledge areas?
There are 10 knowledge areas.
Okay, can you come? Yes, आप जरा आ जाए ना rostrum. You come on the rostrum and discuss.
We have done project key areas, sir. First, scope management, scope management.
And please, just to remind you and just to make it very easy for you, the 4 are core knowledge areas, and these 4 core knowledge areas are the constraints of project. तो आप भूलेंगे नहीं. The 4 knowledge areas are the core knowledge areas, and these are the 4 core areas which is the fundamental requirement for success of the projects. और वो कौन सी है? That is your
Scope, sir, time, quality,
and cost.
and cost, sir.
So these are the four these are four core areas, and core areas means that maybe you are not good in other knowledge areas, but you have to be very good in the core areas, because the core areas, if you can't control the scope, if you can't control the cost or time or the quality, then certainly the project would become a problem for you. So that's why it's called core area. And then there is an integration area we discussed last time. That integration is basically integrating these knowledge areas so that the project is completed. And then we have 5 support areas. What are the 5 support areas?
Sir, human resource, sir, communication, risk management, and procurement, sir.
Procurement, risk management, communication, and stakeholder management, the 10th one.
Yes, sir.
The
Initially,
10th So initially these were 9 and 4 plus 1 plus 4, but
Yes,
a
sir.
couple of years back, I think 5 years back, in the latest or 7th edition of the PMBOK, this stakeholder management was added as a new knowledge area because it was realized by PMI that a large number of projects which are done in the public and private sectors, they fail due to poor management of stakeholder relations. So they emphasized on this knowledge area that it should be given a very strong identity, and the project managers must be trained enough so that they can handle the different kinds of stakeholders. And generally, we said that if we, for example, Aap baith jaye, please have your seat.
Sir, thank you.
For example, when we talk about the cost management, that would certainly mean that we have to complete the project within the given cost. So we try to deploy different kind of processes in which we try to see that how the project can be completed within the given money, because the money is not available all the time, and the money cannot be made available as we like. The second is time management, and we try to see that how time, because time is one of the major resource which cannot be replaced. So if you waste a time, definitely we don't have the replacement of that. So in time management, we try to see that how different processes will be deployed so that we can complete the project within the given time. And same is with the scope, that we are having some boundaries of the project. Every project cannot have everything, and everything is not part of project. So the project is always defined by certain boundaries. For example, we talk about the Faculty of Engineering and Technology, we have given a specified area of building, number of the furnitures and fixture, number of IT equipment, the external development, and so on. So we cannot say that all the things we need in university would be part of the project, because the project has got its own limits and scope. Certainly at university we need a lot of other things. हमें किताबों की भी जरूरत है. We need a lot of new roads, new buildings, but this is not part of the approved PC1. So the project is always constrained by scope, and the scope management, we try to make sure that the scope variation is minimum, if not zero, because there are certain changes we normally do at site, but the objective of the scope management is that we should keep it at minimum. And we use the word scope creep last time, that when we are doing the projects, we have very small changes every day, but by the end of the day, it becomes a very large variation, and we need a lot of money for that. So being a project manager, you have to be very careful from the day first that you bring minimum change in the scope of the project. And then certainly quality, very important, because everything we deliver is having certain specifications which are approved by the tenders, in specifications which are agreed by the stakeholders, which are agreed by the sponsors. And certainly when we are executing the project, we have to make sure that the quality and standards are achieved. And the processes we do for the management of quality is called quality management. Integration management, we discussed last time that we try to see that how these project plans are developed, how the various execution plans are developed, monitoring plans are developed, and how the project closing plans are developed. So Across the project, we have the plan for every phase. And then we have the supports area in which we discuss the procurement, that how we would try to acquire the products and services for the project. And then we have the HR management, which we try to bring the relevant people who are capable enough to deal with the projects. We develop them and we then monitor their performance and so on. And then we have the risk management. We have different kind of risks in the project. Some are known, some are unknown. Some risk we know from the day first. For example, we know that there will be price inflation. We know that there would be bad weather in Gilgit. We know that there would be land issues sometimes, and maybe there will be some roadblocks and so on. So these are some of the known risks, but there are many unknown risks which come during the currency of project. So when we are talking about the project risk management, we try to develop a contingency plan in which we try to see that how the project risk would be addressed during the currency of project. And then we have the communication management. I discussed last time that all the stakeholders have their own requirements of the information. For example, a person who has bought your project of a flats, and he would like to see that how the project would be completed so that he can then start living in that flat or in that house. So his more interest would be to know about the progress and the delivery periods. For a sponsor who is investing into the project, he would be more interested to see the finances and to see that how the money is efficiently used and how the targets are achieved against the investments. So the different happened. Thank you very much. It was electricity problem, but go with us. Thank you. So we were discussing the communication needs, and finally, we discussed the stakeholder management. That since we have a large number of stakeholders associated with the projects, for example, the primary stakeholders are the people who are the project team, the suppliers, the contractors, the end users. And then we have the secondary stakeholders, which are outside the boundary of the project. For example, if we are doing the engineering faculty, then the staff, the people, the officers, and all these people who are working. And then there are tertiary stakeholders, which are outside the boundary of university as well. For example, the society, the media. So when we are doing the projects and we are dealing with the stakeholders, we have a different kind of stakeholders. Some may be supporting the project. They are the friends of the projects. And there might be adversity to the project people who will look upon the project from a negative perspective. And many times you see that when we start the projects, we have this kind of challenges. For example, the people are not well aware of the strengths of the project and they would stop the work. They would try to create different kind of disputes and so on. And if you just look at the success or failures of the project in Pakistan, one of the major impediment is, the stakeholder management, because sometimes we have the people, local people may stand against the project, or there might be some regulations which are coming in the way and so on. So we discussed this approach of PMBOK last time, that we have 5 processes and 10 knowledge areas. And then we also, before we discuss the assignment, which was given in the class last time, I will just like to give a brief about, there is another approach which is normally developed and adopted in UK, and that is called PRINCE. PRINCE, this is a capital, and PRINCE is another approach. And there are some strengths of PRINCE, but I would not go into much detail of the PRINCE because it's not part of our course, because we are mainly dealing with the PMBOK approach or the PMI approach. But certainly, PRINCE stands for I'll give you just, I went through a paper this morning and just to show you that how this there's a fundamental difference. तो आपको ये, can you see the slides?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So if we just look at this slide, the project management body of knowledge, or PMBOK, which is the PMI approach of project management, and then we have another approach which is used mostly in UK and some of the European countries, that is called PRINCE, and PRINCE 2 is the latest version. That means project in controlled environment. PRINCE means project, PR for project, IN for in, and CE for controlled environment. So that is another approach. And how would we select an approach for the project management would depend on many things. For example, what is the overall strategy of the company in terms of competitiveness? What is the overall size of the project and scope? And then what is the priority of the project? And how critical the success is to the company overall image and profitability? And then what are the flexibility in adopting these different approaches?
सर आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है
मेरी आवाज नहीं आ रही है, अब आ रही है? आपकी आवाज मुझे आ रही है. I don't know what is wrong with the. Hello. आज ये भी आवाज आ रही है कि नहीं?
जी सर आ रही है अभी
हाँ यार, ज्यादा छेड़छाड़ ना करे इसके साथ. अच्छा जी, because IT is a tricky thing. When you disturb it, it disturbs you. Okay, so coming to the basic difference, I went to this paper this morning. It is written by one of the Turkish project manager, and he's from the Ataturk University. It's very, and just to tell us that what is the major similarities and differences between the two approaches. So you just, for the morning, you need to know what is PRINCE. PRINCE means that project in a controlled environment. And that is a strategy which is used mostly in UK and some of the European countries. So being a student of project management, you should little bit know about what is PRINCE. This is just telling us that how is the comparison. For example, when we talk of the definition, the project management methodology in PRINCE 2 is very structured, and the PMBOK is a standard guide. When we talk about the practical comprehensiveness, they both have very good practical applications. And for example, the PRINCE has 7 themes, where the PMBOK has 10 knowledge areas. Then when we talk about the processes, the PRINCE has 7 processes and 35 activities, where PMBOK has 5 processes and 47 sub-processes. So this is just a difference. Maybe one process is called procurement planning in one book. In another book, you may find another word, but the major objective is the same. So you just go through this and you will find the similarities and so on. I'm not going to read it, just giving you an overview that how this PRINCE is different from the PMBOK. And you need not to know much about the PRINCE 2 because it's not part of our course. But since you are in an MS class, and if somebody asks you what is PRINCE, at least you can tell them that it's an approach which is used in UK, and that means that project in controlled environment. This is just how the PMBOK is covering the PRINCE 2. For example, when we talk of the business case, PMBOK say that the business case may be periodically reviewed by the stakeholders, and PRINCE 2 has a strong, because the PRINCE 2 is more dominant in the business projects and the particularly the uncertain environment. So it's having a very strong business emphasis. Similarly, when we talk of the organization, we have stakeholder management, human resource, and so on in the PMBOK, and similarly risk and all these. When we talk about the how Prince is covering the PMBOK knowledge areas, for example, how the integration, all these 10 areas are covered in different way by the Prince 2 in under different versions. So you may not be finding the same terms, but definitely they are having some kind of interchangeable terminologies. Then we talk about the comparison, for example, the starting or initiation, directing, initiation, controlling, managing. So these are having different terminologies in the two approaches. For example, initiation in PMBOK and in Prince 2, it means starting up the project. Similarly, planning process in the PMBOK, it is called initiation and starting up in the PMBOK, Prince 2. Execution or executing in PMBOK is synonymous to controlling or managing product delivery by Prince 2. Monitoring and controlling in PMBOK is a controlling kind of term which was used, and closing is a managing a stage boundary or closing a project. So if we just go through these different terminologies, we come across many similarities. This is just a checklist that how the similarities are existing. For example, tailoring the project, closing the project, quality management are there in both the approaches, risk management. So these are the commonalities of the two approaches, that how these two approaches have common management areas. And then there are some differences that how these two differ in different approaches. And I told you that PMBOK is more universal. It is applied to all kinds of projects. And Prince 2 is more relevant to the business projects. For example, a development of a new software for a company. So it's more focused on the businesses. But PMBOK is more comprehensive and more global. So this again tells you some of the major features. I don't know. Finally, the author has showed that PMBOK is a stronger mechanism for integration of processes. Organizational processes, assets, and environmental factors are better integrated with process and PMBOK. PMBOK is a stronger communication management mechanism. Prince 2 covers managing product delivery activities from perspective of the project team. So for project delivery or for business projects, maybe the Prince 2 is more effective. But when we talk about the overall project management, PMBOK is more universal, it's more comprehensive, it is more widely used in the world. And that's why the number of people who are registered with the PMBOK, they are growing in number. Okay, Ji, I think we had a small class activity last time. So can we just go through the class activity? क्या last time हमने discuss किया था? हाँ जी, class reps up. What was the task given to the class last time? There was a paper and we had to develop a 2-pager. तो आपने submit किया है? आप जरा stage पे आके आप जरा present करें क्या आपने? I could receive your copy this morning. I just checked my email, and I was traveling last day.
Yes, sir. Someone other has also sent. Can you share on?
Yes, anybody in the class who would like to present a brief summary of the paper. I mean, we will go like this. Please don't think that this is a class where we would be just talking and we will be just talking things like a KG class. We will have more discussion, and maybe we don't read a lot of slides. Ajay sir, you just face the audience, us taraf muh kare, audience ki taraf muh kare, and then you start discussion.
So this was a review, 2-page review of a research paper, which was written on the topic determinants of public procurement efficiency, comprehensive study of public procurement tools of Punjab, Pakistan. This paper was written by Mr. Amjad Ali. He belongs to European Schools of Administration and Management, France, but stationed at Lahore School of Accountancy and Finance, University of Lahore. Then Mr. Mark Audi is also from France. Mr. Sabahat Nisar, he is also from Pakistan, and Mr. Ismail Sankruk, he is from Turkey. They have, while reviewing the paper, we have in the first uh, line, we have introduced the paper, how it has been written, who has written on which topic. In this paper, I have talked about the authors, where belonging from. The researchers have discussed the the history of procurement regime in public procurement framework in Pakistan. In general, however, they have focused on public procurement rules of Punjab that are 2014 to identify the factors affecting economy and efficiency in public procurement. Since these two factors, efficiency and economy, are the main principles who are achieved in procurement process, therefore, they are just checking what are the variables and factors who are affecting this efficiency. The outcome of the study is that annual procurement planning, use of ICT, information and communication tools, capacity building, strong rehearsal system, and tender.
LG, anyone else in the class who has read or who has submitted? There is another gentleman, Mr. Nizam. I think he's.
He is Nizam, sir.
You are Nizam. Okay. So who is the next who has, who can discuss this?
Sir, Mr. Nizam is on that.
Okay, please make sure that we try to अभी आपका LMS एक दो दिन में हम कर लेंगे by the time all registrations are over. So we will try to go for soft copies. Please avoid writing. We try to save the paper both for us and for you because the paper becomes really a big burden on society. So we want to be more like virtual presentations and virtual except maybe the OHTs. And in OHTs also, there will be two kinds of OHTs. One OHT will be multiple questions, MCQs, and the other would be descriptive. And we would try to see that if it can be virtual, just to make it more sustainable. Okay, who is there in the class who can discuss the rest of the findings in the paper?
Mr. Nizam.
Sir, I'm here on stage. Should I go through the whole summary or?
You are Nizam?
I'm supposed to discuss. Sir, Nizamuddin, sir.
Yes, तो आपने तो अभी discuss कर लिया, and I think we.
No, sir, it was CR sir who discussed the article.
सर मैं अभी मैंने डिस्कस किया है, अभी निजाम साहब करेंगे.
ठीक है निजाम, go ahead.
Sir, should I go through the two-pager or am I supposed to?
I think you should go.
Sir.
You should go. Salam. You should briefly give us the overview, not more than 5 minutes.
Sir, if I go through the article, I think it will not take more than 5 minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
Sir, in the first part, it has discussed, the authors have discussed about the revenue generation, the governments, how governments generate revenues, and how those revenues are utilized for public purposes. For instance, these revenues, once generated, are utilized in execution of new projects or renovation of and repair of existing projects and upgradation of existing projects. Then there is he has discussed about the procurement procedure, the laws and rules that regulate the procurement procedure in Pakistan and especially in Punjab. The author has also discussed in detail that before 2014 and devolution of powers, that the procedure was quite cumbersome and quite detailed one and a complicated one, which was quite inefficient, and the procurement mostly ended in sort of corruption and other misuses and abuses were included or interfered in the procedure. So he has discussed that after the devolution of power and the PEPRA rules when they were framed, since then the procedure has been quite efficient one. Because in this the rules are stringent ones, and ICT has been introduced, that is information and communication technologies have been introduced in the system. Before that, especially the authors have discussed about the advertisement procedure. That was quite a detailed one, and that was an additional cost on the procurement procedure. The author has discussed these three main points. Sir, my submission or my suggestion here is that actually there are three main points. The article basically revolves around those three points that are the corruption and misuse of authority, that is devolution of powers, and then the framing and formulation of those PEPRA rules, and then the use of this information and communication technologies. The rest is just that in our Urdu we say that baat se baar nikalne wali baat hai. Otherwise, there is nothing particular or specific or new in this very article. In the end, he has given three main points, or he has discussed three main conclusions. That are: the use of ICT will ensure efficiency in the procurement procedure. He has also suggested that training of the staff or enhancement of their skills is an important component in the procedure, which will further enhance the procurement procedure. And thirdly, he has discussed that ICT should be further enhanced and specifically tailored for the purpose. Government should give up with this cumbersome procedure of manually advertisement, especially in, for instance, he has given the example of procurement, that is the projects wherein procurement is more than 500 millions, I think. Therein we are supposed to 500 million, I think. 5 million, 5 million, the government is needed to advertise those procurement procedure in, and advertise in more than 2 national papers. That is an additional burden on the government or the procurement procedure, and therefore the authors have recommended that instead of going for this, we should also incorporate the e-advertisement procedure. That will be a sort of a saving for the procurement procedure. So this is the summary on my part, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Nizam. Just to highlight that all of us know that in Pakistan, the public procurement is regulated by the PEPRA rules. These rules was enacted through an ordinance in 2004, and then we had the first version 2009. And later on, after devolution of power through 18 Amendment, the provincial governments have also developed their rules. And these rules are more or less the same. For example, it is called KP PEPRA and KP and Sindh PEPRA and RCIPRA and Sindh and Balochistan and Punjab and so on. And currently, I think the GB is also working to develop their own PEPRA rules. But certainly, all these rules are one way or the other way the same. There is no much difference. And 5 principles which are discussed in these rules. Number 1 is the most important is value of money. That whatever we spend or invest in the government projects, it should bring the value which is invested. For example, if I'm buying this glass of water for 100 rupees, then this glass should have the value of 100 rupees. The second is it should be economical, that we should save the money. We should not be spending more money on the procurement than required. The third should be efficient, that we should deploy the processes of the procurement which can bring efficient results instead of wasting our resources and trying to make many wastages. Better to save the. And then we have the competitiveness, that the fourth principle is competitiveness, that we should provide equal play field to those who are capable to compete for the project. They should be given the opportunity to compete. So the competition must be created among all the major stakeholders or contractors who are willing to part and who have the capacity to take part for that procurement. And finally, the transparency. And the transparency means that whatever we do should be publicly visible to the people, and the rule of law must be very strictly followed. So these are the 5 principles: the economy, efficiency, and then competitiveness, and the transparency and efficiency, and there are 5 principles. And under class 4 of the PEPRA rules, it is very clearly defined that the objective of these rules. Now, there are a lot of challenges in the rules. For example, in this paper, they discuss that how e-procurement can be a useful way. In my book, which is now in the press, I have authored one chapter on e-procurement, that how the e-procurement can help us to remove the questions of corruption and how to, the pooling or the cartelling or the ring system which we face in the contractors, they can be removed through an intelligent way. But certainly there are challenges about the data security, about the confidentiality of information. So I think the good success story which has been created in Pakistan is in KP, where the e-procurement is very widely used for the last 5 or 6 years in the 2 consecutive tenure of PTI government. So I think it's created a lot of competitiveness. It has created a lot of transparency, and but certainly there are challenges because the IT system infrastructure must be very strong. The confidentiality is very important. The data security is very important, and the capacity of the people who are working in the e-procurement is very important. So that is something which we can sort out very easily. So I think this was the first part of lecture. We tried to see that how the 5 processes and 10 knowledge areas, and then we tried to discuss a comparative analysis of PRINCE2 versus PMBOK. PRINCE2 is, we know that project in uncertain conditions is an approach which is widely used in Europe and UK, whereas PMBOK is very widely used across the world. Both have different approaches, but some things are very common and some things are different. By the end of the day, we could see that PRINCE2 is more focusing on the business case of the project and the deliverables quality. Where PMBOK is having a comprehensive, holistic approach to manage all the attributes of the project's risks as well as other important areas. And certainly PMBOK becomes more widely used in the world, as it has a lot of flexibility, it has a lot of strengths. And finally, we discussed the PEPRA rules and the Punjab PEPRA, which is more or less the same like federal PEPRA. So the next, we will discuss the feasibility analysis for the projects, that how, for example, we develop the various feasibilities of the projects and why feasibility is very important. As we all know that in any society, money is not very easily available. Even if you go for a very developed society like Europe and North America, even then you will find a lot of competition for the money, and people would be trying to get the money for their projects. So it's not very easy to get the funding from, whether you are working with the government. For example, the federal government may be receiving more than 1,000 projects every year, or 2,000 or 5,000 project proposals. And how the government would decide that, for example, how much out of this must be financed. And if, for example, you are if you are a chief financial officer of the project of your team, of your organization, you may be receiving a lot of project proposals from different departments. But certainly, finding funding for these projects is a real challenge, and we need to have a very rigorous feasibility analysis. So we try to see that whether the project is financially feasible, whether the project is technically viable, whether the project is environmentally sustainable, whether the project is human resource is available, and so on. So project feasibility analysis is basically a rigorous process through which we want to see that how the project is feasible in terms of its technical feasibility, in terms of its financial feasibility, in terms of its HR feasibility or managerial feasibility, in terms of environmental feasibility. And as you all know, that there is always a need for environmental assessment. We talk about the EIA and IEE, and we will discuss this sometime in future. So even environment is very important in all parts of the world, in Pakistan and particularly in GB. So when we bring the new projects, we have to see that how it is going to impact the environment, and if there is any impact, how can we mitigate that through a better design. So the project feasibility analysis is a rigorous process. We try to see the technical feasibility, environmental feasibility, financial feasibility, even political feasibility, organizational feasibility, uh, and many more feasibilities you can talk about. Uh, so we will discuss mainly the 5 feasibilities which we normally take care of. But in some books, you may even find the, for example, contractual feasibility, ethical feasibility, legal feasibility, and terms like that. But normally these terms are covered under the technical feasibility part of the feasibility. So we have things like financial feasibility, and then economic feasibility, that how the financial would certainly mean that how the money would come from, and what is the cost of this capital. For example, if we are borrowing 500 million for a project from any bank, then how this money would be invested and how this money would bring profit to me so that I can pay back the loan to the bank. So the availability of sufficient finances for the project we would like to see in the feasibility. And then economic feasibility would mean that how this project is going to create new employment, how is this create to increase the per capita income of the region, how it would be helping in creating equity in the society through income generation and so on. And then we talk about the technical feasibility, for example, the availability of resources, the availability of land, the availability of skilled and unskilled and semi-skilled people, the availability of material, raw material, and all these, which is really very important. And then we also talk about the human resource or managerial feasibility, that how the different kind of people would be available during the project, and after the project is over, what will be the operational and so on. And finally, we talk about the environmental feasibility, and that is very important, which is sometimes called environmental assessment of the project. And we use the word EIA. EIA means environmental impact assessment. Environmental impact assessment is a rigorous process through which we want to see that how the projects are going to create impacts in the environment, and how through a better and intelligent project management and design we can reduce, if not eliminate, if we can't eliminate the negative consequences of the projects, because the new projects may bring some deforestation like thing. The new projects may create noise pollution. It may create some visual pollution. The new projects may create some issues for the natural habitat for the local animals and so on. So we have to see that how this new project is going to impact the ecosystem, the environment, and how the better and intelligent designs would help us to reduce that impact. So before we start the formal lecture, we have a break of 10 to 15 tea break. I'd like to have a cup of tea, and then we meet at 11:30. Thank you.
Take 10 minutes break.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I just put my speaker on 0, so I couldn't listen to your voice, unfortunately. But anyhow, I think the people who are sitting at the back rows must come at the front so that they are visible, and at least they can. CR साहब जरा class management protocols जो है ना आप बनाए, so that the everybody is a, वो पीछे कोने में लोग बैठे हैं, I don't know. मेरे ख्याल में आगे बैठ जाए ताकि you can be involved in the class. There are challenges with the virtual class, but certainly if you are close to the screen, you can discuss many good things and learn. Okay, so how would we define the feasibility of a project? Anybody in the class, how we define the feasibility of a project? Anyone in the class who would just tell us how would define the feasibility? We are not talking about PC2 or PC1 at the moment, just what we mean by a feasibility of a project.
So feasibility in a layman language we can easily describe as the possibility, likely possibility. In all the terms the conception to conceivement of a project, like is starting from the planning to the completion. We can easily say that the possibility, possible that project is possible or not. It can also be referred as viability in terms of economy, technically and financially, and in terms of environmental impact.
So certainly the projects which we do, whether in a private sector or a public sector, consume a lot of money, a lot of resources, and every project is unique. Again, we discussed this last time, and every project has got specific objectives. So every project which we develop may not be feasible in the sense that the resources are always limited. You don't have unlimited money, or you don't have unlimited funds available. So the organization would then like to see that how can we rank the project from the best to second best and third best and so on. And by the end of the day, we may decide that the first top 5 or top 10 projects can be started this year. Now, to rank these projects in terms of its importance for the organization, for the continuity of operations, for the new products, for the different kind of sustainabilities, we go through a feasibility process. And we discussed last time that project appraisal in the government sector is either measured through the PC1, which is normally used for all projects, and that is again called project appraisal. And or if in a mega complex project, we go for the survey analysis or feasibility analysis, that is called PC2. So basically, the PC1 and PC2 documents which we are using is leading us to the feasibility to see that whether project is socially acceptable, financially viable, technically feasible, environmentally sustainable, and so on. So the feasibility analysis, you can just write also that it's a rigorous process to see that how the project is technically feasible, financially viable, socially acceptable, environmentally sustainable. So these words are very, very important because when we talk about the technical feasibility, we have to see that how the various requirements of the project, like land, like human resource, like the raw material, the expertise which are necessary for the project, and so on. And that would come the technical feasibility. And then financially viability or commercial viability would mean that how the project funding or investment can be justified, because you don't have unlimited funds, and every project cannot be financed by the government or by the organization. So certainly the organization have to pick the best project in terms of their objectives, in terms of their profitability, and so on. And then we also talked that socially acceptable. We are doing projects for the society. This is very important that these projects are socially acceptable. It should not challenge the society norms. It should not bring any distortion in the existing values, because if that is the case, then people would stand against such projects. And you could see in Pakistan that many projects which could not succeed because socially these were not acceptable. And we also see that the projects are environmentally sustainable, that the environment should not have a very negative consequences by the new projects. And if there are some impacts on the environment, then how can we mitigate it? How can we reduce that impact? Mitigation is a word we normally use to reduce the impact. Certainly, we cannot, we may not be able to reduce to zero or nullify all the impacts because the project would bring both negative and positive impacts. So the negative impact is risk and the positive impact is opportunity. So we try to see that how the risk can be mitigated and how the opportunities can be exploited. For example, if we are bringing a new tunnel project in the Gilgit-Baltistan, the threat can be disturbance of the ecosystems. Maybe the blasting and all these can create some issues for the local flora and fauna. Maybe the habitat of different animals and plants are disturbed. And maybe we have other challenges in terms of noise, in terms of pollution, and so on. So these are the risks or negative impacts. We would try to reduce it through better engineering, to better planning, and so on. And then there might be some opportunities. For example, the cost of travel may be reduced, the travel distance may be reduced, the accidents may be reduced, and then it will have better prospects for the socioeconomic development when the travel time is reduced, the accident is reduced, the healthcare attendance cost is reduced, and so on. So the positive impacts are the positive risk are normally opportunities, and we try to exploit that, and the negative impacts are risk, which we try to mitigate it. So these are the two terms we use: mitigation for the negative and exploitation for the positive. So in the environmental scenario, we try to see that how the negative impacts on environment can be reduced, and we have environmental impact assessment, or EIA study. We will discuss one or two studies sometime in future if we could find time, that how we are trying to develop because there are list of projects given by the government for which you need to have the EIA, and there are two lists, for example, or three lists. One are those projects which does not require any environmental assessment. The second are those projects which need a detailed assessment, which is called EIA. And then there is a third list in which we have only interim environmental evaluation, or IEE, or something like that, which is not very detailed. So for all projects we do in the public or private sector, we need to bring for example, if you are bringing a new expressway in the private sector, which can connect the two cities in the Gilgit-Baltistan or in Pakistan, even for that you will have to bring environmental assessment, because this investment cannot be approved if the environmental assessment is not done. Unfortunately, in Pakistan, for a very long time, this was not very seriously taken, and we could see that many mega projects like M2 has been developed without the environmental assessment. And today we can see that is the longest route, having very difficult terrain, particularly when you travel to the Kalar Kahar and the national park, where a lot of disturbance has been created. And again, the travel time has been increased in terms of distance by more than 80 kilometers. So that is one of the mistake we have done, that we have not taken into account the proper environmental assessments of such projects. We discussed last time that before the projects are pre-projects phase, we have the PC1 and PC2, and when we are monitoring the projects, we are having the PC3 and B, monthly and quarterly. And once we complete the project, we immediately submit the PC4, and 1 year later, we submit the PC5, which is post-project evaluation. So these are the three phases, and we are using. Chale sir, pade, somebody should stand, and so that class is involved.
The feasibility study is defined as an evaluation or analysis of potential impact of a proposed project or program.
So एक perspective ये है that how the project will impact. This impact can be financial impact, it could be environmental impact, it can be cultural impact, it can be social impact. So one perspective of the feasibility is that you try to see the impact. Now it can bring more employment, that is a positive impact. It can bring more opportunities for the female education or empowerment, it is a positive impact. So we try to see that what are the impacts of these new projects through a feasibility analysis. Next, G.
Next, a feasibility study is conducted to assist decision makers.
So certainly, if you are getting funding from the World Bank or from the Asian Development Bank or from the PSDP, from the government sector, you need to convince the decision makers that my project is very viable and I can, this is very important. So you convince the decision makers for investment into the projects. Aage ji?
In determining whether or not to implement a particular project or program.
So the feasibility analysis would lead us to the final decision that whether a project is feasible to start or not. It may be deferred, it may be rejected, or it may be accepted. So we can have three scenarios that if the project is feasible and you can convince the stakeholders and sponsor, they would approve it, maybe with certain amendments. Maybe they defer it and they say, okay, it's not the priority of the government. We can take up this maybe 2 years later. Or the third scenario can be that the project is rejected and the government or the sponsor is not agree with your viewpoint and arguments. Aage.
The feasibility study is based on extensive research on both the current practices and proposed project or program and its effects on the existing operation.
Okay, ji, next.
The feasibility study will contain extensive data related to financial and operational impact and will include advantages and disadvantages of both the current situation and the proposed plan.
For example, I discussed that what is the current status of the travel time and the traveling difficulties we experience while traveling from Gilgit to Chelas or Gilgit to, say, Islamabad. And then if we are trying to bring a tunnel project, then what can be the that scenario and how it can bring the challenges and opportunities for us. So we try to see that how this new project would bring the change and how this new project is going to contribute to the society. And at the same time, we also want to see that what are the disadvantages or challenges. Next, G.
The selection of a sound project to achieve the given target of economic development in a particular sector is very important for attainment of planned objectives.
Okay, please continue.
Development projects, especially large and complex ones, often meet the difficulties during their execution process. A feasibility study is therefore a prerequisite for preparation of a major development project on sound line and is not ruled out even for a minor.
So it means that feasibility, even if you are having a project of 1 day or 1 month, being a project manager for a very long time, I have a feasibility of every day in my mind. That, for example, how would I do my task of the day and how would I manage my time? This is really very important in life. If you are a project manager for more than 2 decades, then you become a good planner in the sense that they to try to manage your resources in a very efficient way. So even a small project of 1 day or 1 month would also require a proper feasibility. If you are developing a new software system, which may not be very complex, it would maybe require 2 weeks of hard work. But even then, for that, you have to plan at feasibility, that how the resources, the money, the development team, the platform, the software, hardware, and all these would be definitely discussed in the feasibility. Finally, Aage.
It is basically an in-depth 3-in-1 study consisting of the technical, financial, and economic viability of a project. The study arrives at a definite conclusion about the feasibility of a project after considering the various options.
Okay, this is very interesting. There might be many more feasibilities, but the 3 fundamental feasibility in all these feasibility we do are part of these 3 components, that whether we are talking about the technical feasibility, for example, I discussed there how the resources would come, how the money would be, the human resource would be available or not, the land availability, the material availability, the utilities, the access roads to the project sites, and all these will be considered in the technical. And then we have financial, the money, which is the most important, how the money would come and what would be the cost of that money and how this money would be funded by different sponsors and so on. And finally, economic viability, that how this new project would bring new economic prosperity in the region, because anything which we do is ultimately contributing to economic development. How the per capita income would be increased, how the national income or the regional income would be increased, how the employment opportunities would be created with the new projects, and how the distribution of income across different people would be ensured to. So economic feasibility would take a economic perspective of the that how this new project is going to create economic opportunity for the prosperity of the region. Now, going to the I mean, you will find a lot of terms, for example, economic, financial, operational or technical, schedule, legal and contractual, political, marketing, ethical, environmental. So if you just go to the other, documents, you may be even finding some more. But normally these are clubbed into 3 or 4 for example, economic, financial, the technical, within technical, you bring the schedule, legal, political, and maybe marketing is separately for the private or business projects. We try to see that how the markets would be available for the new products, what is the market share, and how this market would be, what is your media campaign, what is your advertisement plan for the new products, and so on. And then ethical is also sometime an environmental. Now, the project appraisal, when we talk about the technical analysis, ye padh le, sir?
Sir, I have a question.
Gigi, please.
Sir, previous slide, please.
Previous. Okay.
Assessing project feasibility. The last one is environmental. Usually we are considering only the far-flung areas. I mean, we are only considering the weather and transportation issue. But many projects I have not observed or seen any carbon-related issues like carbon emissions. Different projects we are using electric equipment, generators. So
I think this is very unfortunate that in most of the public sector projects, even for mega projects, I just given an example that even in mega projects like motorway and expressway, we don't have the EIAs. Even I don't know about. You must ask the NHA people that where is the EIA of Shindur Expressway and where the EIA of Naltar. They can share with you if they have any EIA or environmental assessment of the, because certainly when you have a billions projects, particularly in a very eco-sensitive region like Gilgit-Baltistan, there is always a challenge for the ecology and there's always a challenge for the environment. So for such projects, I think it should be religiously followed that we bring the environmental assessment first, and then we decide based on that. But unfortunately, I agree with you that even in Islamabad, by being part of many environmental assessments, and sometime World Bank also gave me some tasks for environmental assessment. I developed a couple of documents for you can Google and you can find some of my papers that how these environmental assessments are not respected in Pakistan. And that's the reason that by the end of the day, you damage the environment, you have a lot of pollution, you damage the natural habitat of the flora and fauna and so on. So in principle, I mean, people like us who are educated, they should create a strong voice in the society that the environmental assessment should be done for the mega projects at least. So you can find some very good EIA reports on website, but again, the mere challenge is not the good report. I mean, we have very good reports of everything, but when we are starting the projects, then we don't care for the forest. We cut these, and you can see what has happened even to this Skardu Jaglot Road. A lot of things you can see. I don't find any environmental assessment. If there is, I don't know, but I certainly think that there must be a proper EIA, because if you damage the existing ecosystem, and by the end of the day, you have slides and you have a lot of troubles then definitely it would create a lot. So, but advocacy must be there because if I just compare the 20 years or 25 years, I'm here in since 1999. I came to Islamabad and I'm very closely looking at that. The environment is improving in the sense that at least now the donors are very particular about the environmental assessments, and the World Bank is very particular, and they always conduct environmental assessment, and they also many times have a monitoring teams who come which come for the I mean what we can do is to make sure that at least if I'm doing a project, I should look into the environmental impacts. But certainly it's a challenge in a country like Pakistan, where the political decisions are quickly done, and where a lot of standard procedures and standards are compromised. But nevertheless, I think we should try our level best to bring these things in our culture, and I think the things are one of my paper you would see in the environmental assessment in developing countries in which I have.
Sir,
Gigi.
sir, all these 9 points, the feasibility 9 points, from where these comes, who would deal all these 9 points from owner to the project managers? These 9 points, an owner would decide to go for a project,
If
and
we
a
talk about the
manager
public,
who will take along, who would decide all these points to be taken care?
I
Because
think
manager has to complete the project, owner has to decide to start the project.
actually,
Manager,
if we talk about the public sector, the Environmental Protection Agency is responsible for this kind of studies. I mean, what normally happens that if a project is proposed by me, like for example, I want to invest in a project, a chair left project from say from 0 point to Margala Hills, maybe from Pir Sohawa. This is a multi-billion project. And at time, I remember the CDA wanted to have the private investment. Now, if I'm an investor and I want to put, say, 5 billion rupees into this project, uh, alongside the financial feasibility, I would also bring the environmental feasibility. So normally, the environmental feasibility is developed by the investors. In public sector, the environmental feasibility would be developed by the consultant who are engaged by the clients, and that feasibility would be then reviewed by the Environmental Protection Agency. And there is a process. For example, there will be a public consultation. There is open debate. People come from different parts. So normally, if I'm a sponsor, I would develop it myself and submit that to the client, and the client will then go through a process of consultation and see that if I'm a government, then definitely the consultant would be engaged to develop the environmental assessment, and that would be then reviewed by the Environmental Protection Agency, for example, the GBAPA, or the National Environmental Protection Agency in Pakistan, if there is a federal project. So all these things are well defined in the EPA Act. If you just go for EPA Act, National Environmental Protection Agency Protection Act 1989, I think, or 90, that would tell you the entire procedure, and all these procedures available in the EPA website. But again, the problem is not the process. The problem is mainly the commitment of political leadership, the commitment of the public servants like us, that they many times compromise on these requirements, and they would be, for example, a person, the chief minister or the governor would be more interested to start the project this year. And if you just tell him that we need to have a feasibility, environmental feasibility, they may not be supporting it because they would say that it would take maybe 6 months and we can't wait for 6 months. But while doing this, I think we create a lot of troubles. And once the project are started without environmental feasibility, soon we see that people are raising against it. People don't know about the purpose of the project, and the stakeholders are not engaged. And you see that one fine morning, the people would close the road and they would say, we don't allow this project. So that's why environmental assessment is very important. I'll discuss it later in one slide.
Sir, I have a question.
Gigi.
Sir, we have also a concept of like age certification, green buildings. if we think about the environmental factors, then we can easily understand green buildings, why it's important.
आपके इस कमेंट पे मुझे, हम तो जन्नत के सबसे नीचे दर्जे में जाने की ख्वाहिश रखते हैं, आप जन्नतुल नईम। ये जो आप बात कर रहे हैं ग्रीन बिल्डिंग, वी आर 200 years away. Just look at my papers. We are 200 years away from this dream. Green building की तो आप बात छोड़े ना, sustainable building, green building. I mean, I'm a sustainable built environment practitioner, and you would see a lot of my articles on the green buildings. And currently, I'm doing make university में, I'm doing my postdoc with the University of Malaysia. It's a kind of blended, maybe sometime I visit for few weeks, and we are trying to see that how green campus protocols can be developed in Pakistan. तो ये फिर आप उस पे अलग बात करेंगे ना, मैं फिर आप इस पे जाएंगे तो फिर ये तो पूरा सस्टेनेबल बिल्ट एनवायरनमेंट इज वन ऑफ माय एमएस, और उसमें तो पूरा मैंने बहुत काम किया है, रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग, सस्टेनेबल। बट ग्रीन बिल्डिंग जस्ट जो लोगों को पता नहीं है, जो लीडर इन जो लीड्स का जो सर्टिफिकेशन है, देयर आर मेनी सर्टिफिकेशन, बट वन ऑफ द कॉमन सर्टिफिकेशन व्हिच इज ग्लोबली यूज्ड is leader in environmental design and something like that. और उसमें बिल्डिंग्स को हम यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स में फ्रॉम ब्रोंज टू गोल्डन सिल्वर सर्टिफाइड करते हैं, और फिर उसके टैक्सेस, उस मिसाल के तौर पे अगर आपकी बिल्डिंग ग्रीन का मतलब ये है कि आपने रीयूज मटेरियल यूज किया, उसमें आपने रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी को 100% यूज किया, आपने कोई उसमें ऐसी चीज नहीं डाली जो विच इज क्रिएटिंग हैजर्ड फॉर एनवायरनमेंट, then that is classified the best building, and based on that the government would give you some tax rebates. तो ये लीड्स का जो ग्रीन बिल्डिंग अप्रोच है, इस पे पर किसी वक्त बात करेंगे, बट दिस इज नॉट स्कोप ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट, इट इज स्कोप ऑफ द सस्टेनेबल बिल्ट एनवायरनमेंट व्हिच आई टीच to the MS PhD sometime. So coming to
Sir,
the,
I have a question.
जी
Sir, normally nowadays in projects there is a climate fund. That is 1% of the total cost of the project. And where is that fund utilized? I think it is separate, something different from the department impact assessment. So my question is, where is this fund utilized?
what is that fund called? Climate fund?
Climate fund, 1% climate fund.
Actually, to be very frank, I don't know, लेकिन अगर ये फंड कट हो रहा है तो it's a very good initiative. I think this climate fund should be used in environmental sustainability. For example, how can we educate the people to reduce or to at least create awareness about the impacts of climate change through better communication, through better awareness, to early warning systems, designs of different kind of. So I think this climate fund, which is now deducted in GB project, can be used for environmental sustainability, climate resilient society through better community awareness and so on. But to be very frank, I mean, though my comments are recorded, unfortunately, these environmental funds and the climate funds are again used for political decisions. And it is not used, the purpose or the objective is very good and holistic, that we try to deduct the money from the projects 1% so that this money is used for the climate resilient initiatives, that how can, for example, improve the agriculture in GB, which can be climate resilient, how can we develop the new infrastructure. I'm currently working on one of my paper, and I'll share with you the link, that we have gone through this process, and we have realized that 90% of the buildings in Gilgit-Baltistan are not resilient for earthquake and disasters. Now, who is going to control it? I mean, there is no building control authority. There is no I mean, I was really astonished to see that a person is constructing 7-story building in Hunza, and I asked him, "Have you designed it properly?" And he doesn't know. I think मुझे लगता है कि किसी जो है किसी मैसन ने उसको कहा होगा कि 6 सरिये लगाए, तो उसने 6 सरिये लगाए होंगे और वो उसके ऊपर 6 स्टोरी। तो वी आर प्लेइंग अ लॉट ऑफ आई मीन हैवोक टू द सोसाइटी। अब मैं तो बड़ा परेशान, बीइंग अ स्ट्रक्चरल इंजीनियर, आई वाज रियली वरीड दैट what would happen to this building if there is an earthquake, and
It
is it
was
the
in Nandar as well, sir.
हाँ, ये सारी जगह हो रहा है ना। दिन हु वुड स्टॉप इट? आप लोग बात करेंगे ना, आप लोग। आई मीन आई वाज एस्टोनिश्ड टू सी दैट देयर इज नो बिल्डिंग कंट्रोल अथॉरिटी इन जीबी, देयर इज नो maps approval authority in anywhere in the GB where people at least can be educated कि जी इतना ओपन स्पेस छोड़े, फ्रेम स्ट्रक्चर बनाए, फ्रेम की इतनी वो बीम, कम से कम ये बड़ी मोटी मोटी चीजें तो हम चेक करें ना। चले वी कांट से कि जी हमें स्ट्रक्चर डिजाइन जो है बहुत। तो ये वो चीजें हैं जिसपे मैंने एक दफा सीएम साहब को भी कहा, लास्ट सीएम साहब भी, कि खुदा के लिए ये जो हो रहा है, इट इज बिकमिंग, मुझे तो इट्स अ बिग हैवक इज बीइंग प्लेड टू द बिल्ट एनवायरनमेंट ऑफ गिलगित बल्तिस्तान। और अभी हम सिविल इंजीनियरिंग की तरफ इसलिए भी जा रहे हैं कि कुछ हम अर्बन प्लानिंग पे भी काम करें। वी ट्राई टू सी दैट हाउ कैन वी इम्प्रूव, बट सर्टेनली इसके लिए जब तक लोगों के अंदर वेल नहीं होगी, जब तक मतलब गवर्नमेंट, मतलब इमीडिएटली गवर्नमेंट शुड डेवलप, आपके पास जो CNW डिपार्टमेंट को टास्क करे कि जी बिल्डिंग कंट्रोल सेल आप बनाए, और कोई भी आदमी जो अपना एक कमरे का घर भी बनाए या एक प्लाजा बनाए, वो अपनी ड्राइंग आपसे अप्रूव कराए। तो दिस इज नॉट उधर एक दो बंदे, वो कम से कम वो ब्रॉडरली देखे कि वो, मतलब आई एम रियली एस्टोनिश्ड टू सी कि मैं जब सिंदूर इस पे जा रहा हूँ, पीपल आर आई मीन कंस्ट्रक्टिंग वेस्ट। कोई डिजाइन नहीं है सीढ़ी का, कोई डिजाइन यानी सर आदमी का लगता है, देर इज नो प्रॉपर हेडरूम। मैं कल मरी में था और वहां पे एक बिल्डिंग से मैं उतर रहा था, तो मैंने उसको कहा कि यार देखे ना, इसने थोड़ी सी जगह बचाने के लिए 2 सीढ़ियां कम की है और अब हर आदमी का यहाँ पे सर लगता है। सो दीज आर द डिजाइन वी नीड टू टेक केयर ऑफ। लेकिन हु इज गोइंग टू, हम है ना जी, इस पे कोई अल्लाह फरिश्ते तो नहीं। हम लोग जब तक अपनी सोसाइटी को सेव नहीं करेंगे बिल्डिंग कंट्रोल के जरिए, बिल्डिंग, और उसके लिए जरूरी है कि CNW या जो आपका पाक PWD है उसमें एक बिल्डिंग कंट्रोल अथॉरिटी बन जाए, बिल्डिंग कंट्रोल सेल बन जाए, जो कम से कम एक, यानी आप देखें ना कि एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट काउंसिल जो KP में है उसमें भी एक बिल्डिंग कंट्रोल सेल है, जो फीस लेके बिल्डिंग को मोटा मोटा चेक करके अप्रूव करते हैं, टप्पा लगाते हैं और उसके बाद बिल्डिंग लोग बनाते हैं। यानी गिलगित बल्तिस्तान एक वाहिद जगह है जहां पे जो आदमी आसमान तक बिल्डिंग बनाना चाहे तो देर इज नो रिस्ट्रिक्शन। वो कल शुरू करेगा, वो बगैर फाउंडेशन का बिल्डिंग बनाएगा, और फिर जब किसी दिन जलजल आएगा तो आप देखेंगे यू विल हैव अ मोर कैटास्ट्रॉफ देन देन कश्मीर, जो हमने मुजफ्फराबाद में तबाही देखी।
In all the districts of GB, sir, it is MC that has the responsibility to ensure building control and all the rules and regulations, sir.
यस, दिस इज द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी। लेकिन जी ये जिम्मेदारी हम सब की है ना जी, हम कौन है, हुकूमत कौन है? मैं एज एन एकेडेमिया चाहे मैं एज एकेडेमिया चाहिए कि आप एज इंजीनियर्स, प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजर्स, इस पे बात होनी चाहिए। देयर मस्ट बी, अब देखें ना, जो बिल्डिंग्स AKDN वाले बना रहे हैं, जहाँ पे एक प्रॉपर इंजीनियरिंग है, जहाँ पे प्रॉपर डिजाइन है, उसकी आप क्वालिटी देके, उसकी आप रोबस्ट रेजिलियंस देके, और जो आम सरकारी हमने बिल्डिंग्स बनाए हैं स्कूल की क्वालिटी देके, उनकी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की क्वालिटी, so one is really very disappointed that in the same society, on one side we have professionalism, on other side we have corruption, and nobody takes care of that. तो ये तो फिर होगा ना, फिर अल्लाह का अजाब तो आएगा ना। इसलिए फिर बिल्डिंगें गिरती है, लोग लोग जो है मरते हैं, तो फिर दैट इज बिकॉज ऑफ द पुअर डिजाइन्स। बट एनी हाउ लेट अस मूव फॉरवर्ड, क्योंकि इस पर हम बात करेंगे तो बात वैसे करनी भी चाहिए, बात करेंगे तो बात बनेगी, बात चलेगी, अदरवाइज तो फिर जो है ना वो गूंगों का मुआशरा जो है ना, वो फिर गूंगे ही सारे पैदा होते हैं। Managerial feasibility पढ़े जी, managerial में भी we just I would like to just quickly tell you that, for example, we try to see कि how the project will be managed, who will be the project lead, उसके पास टीम कौन सी होगी, और जब once the project is completed, then how the operational team would come, and how different kinds of operational management would be done. So we need a lot of resources, human resources, during the project and after the project. So in managerial feasibility, we try to see that how the organization during the project and after the project would be deployed to make the project successful. हमारे पास, for example, you have seen that a lot of good projects have been completed in Gilgit-Baltistan, but you don't have the operational teams. PC4s have not been submitted. I mean, when I visited Shimshal, I discussed this last time, that there was a very wonderful hospital or regional health center building, which was very, very good, and but there was no doctor, there was no technician. And in the morning when I was walking, I asked that where is the doctor? There's no doctor so far, and the building has been completed since last 2 years. I don't know what is the status as of today, but this is I'm talking when I was there. I mean during the COVID or around 2020 or 2021, I visited twice, but so a lot of school buildings have been completed, a lot of colleges, but we don't have the operational teams. So when we are talking about the project managerial feasibility, we have to see that how the human resource would be available during the project, and once the project is completed, then how the operational team would come and they would manage the projects. मैं क्विकली जाता हूँ, बहुत सारी चीजें अभी आपके लिए रेलेवेंट नहीं होगी. कमर्शियल पढ़े जी.
Commercial marketing analysis. The commercial aspect of a project includes the arrangements for marketing, the output produced by the project, and the arrangement for the supply of the inputs needed to build and operate the project. Test marketing, marketing planning processes, market share determination, pricing and competition strategy, skimming or penetration, distribution networks, advertisement plans, sales promotion strategies, product lifecycle study.
So when we are talking about the commercial projects or the projects we are doing for profits, where the major objective is to earn money, then certainly we would be giving the commercial or marketing analysis, and that is really very important. For example, when we start the new product, हमने अभी जो अपना Karakoram spring water product शुरू किया, so it is a test market phase in Gilgit only. So we are not at the moment, because we are testing the product in the local market to see that what is the return and how can we improve it. Then the market planning, that how the different markets would be explored in GB and then in Pakistan and maybe overseas. So you try to plan for that market. And then, for example, if I say that at the moment, per year, say 10,000 and 1 million bottles are used by the people around in the GB, then what share we would like, maybe 10% or 5% share we would try to get from the market, and that based on that, then I would predict my cost and returns. And then the pricing strategy, for example, आप क्या करना चाहते हैं? आप एवरेज के पास रहना चाहते हैं या आप क्वालिटी को इतना बेहतर करना चाहते हैं? You become the, so skimming normally means that you have, for example, if you are buying the toothpaste like Farhan's or maybe a toothpaste like Medicam, that may be very expensive as compared to the rest of the toothpaste in market, because the quality of their toothpaste is much higher than the average quality. That is called skimming strategy. Skim means to come to the top. जिस तरह बलाई जो है ना, skim उसको हम कहते हैं. So skimming means that you select the strategy in which you go for the expensive product, but at the same time, the quality attributes are so high that it can compete in quality, and people are. A lot of product you see are available in the market, which are very expensive, but still people buy it because the quality is very high as compared to the average quality of other products. Then the penetration strategy is that you go to the lowest level. Oh, English toothpaste, 12 रुपए में आया. So that is a, so now you try to take this product to every person who need this is penetration, that you go to the lowest level of, and you bring a product which is certainly not very good, but it is fulfilling the requirements of a general consumer, and you want to see English toothpaste in the hand of every person. So certainly here your profit would be very small, but your volume of sale would be very large, and based on your good market share, you would be earning. But in skimming, your share would be maybe not more than 0.5%, but your per product share, profit would be more, and you will be. Then we track to distribution networks, for example, how to reach to the wholesaler, how to reach to the having the supply chain management, how to make it available to the different parts of the country. So you will develop the networks of retailers, distributor, and so on, wholesalers. And then advertisement plan, for example, how the media campaign would be designed, what kind of advertisement through different advertisement medium you will bring. Then how the sales promotion would be done. You will have the sales force who would be engaged to. And finally, maybe after 1 year, the product become obsolete, and then you try to see that how can we. तो आप देख रहे हैं कि जी ये फेयर एंड लवली का ये फला गया, तो फिर वो 1-2 साल के बाद उसके साथ एक और लक्स का जो है वो आमंड प्रोडक्ट आ गया, तो जस्ट बिकॉज दे वांट टू इंक्रीज द लाइफ साइकिल ऑफ द इसको हम कहते हैं प्रोडक्ट री इंजीनियरिंग. दैट if you, for example, have this mobile, you cannot afford to change this mobile every year. So what you would do, that you would try to add some new attributes to this existing product and with a new version. And this is called project life cycle management, that you re-engineer the existing products with some new attributes and you try to enhance the life. क्योंकि ये मुमकिन नहीं है कि आप हर साल एक नया प्रोडक्ट लाएंगे. So this would because this would require a lot of R&D. This would require a lot of investment. So what we normally do, that we try to enhance the attributes of existing product, and we bring some good packing, some good color, some good fragrance, and we try to see that this product is becoming a kind of new product for the market. तो आप देख रहे हैं कि जी हर साल 6 महीने बाद लक्स अपने साबुन को एक नए वर्जन के साथ, हालांकि साबुन तो बेसिकली वही है ना, वही जाग बनाता है वही, but you bring a new fragrance, a new packing, a new design, a new combinations, and this is how you improve the product life cycle.
Sir,
जी जी.
I have a question. Sir, the slide which we were discussing, in that, whose job is this? Is it an operational management task or a
No,
marketing
this is
management task?
we are talking about the feasibility. The feasibility is
Sir,
the job of the.
if this is a feasibility, now my question comes. In previous slide where we were discussing the project feasibility, there we did not discuss the outcome, the post-project task. Here we are discussing the post-project. We are just discussing the operational task of a project, the pricing or the outcome or the marketing planning or everything. But in that project feasibility,
अच्छा,
we
एक तो
discuss anything operational.
एक तो जिंदगी में चीजों को बड़ा आसान बनाने की कोशिश करें, अपने लिए भी और दूसरों के लिए भी. दिस इज अ वेरी गुड लेसन. प्लीज डोंट कॉम्प्लिकेट थिंग्स. आई एम अ वेरी सिंपल पर्सन, so I will give you very simple answers. Don't complicate yourself. Don't think of something which you haven't. This is simply, I'm bringing a new product, and I want to convince I need, for example, I need 200 million from a sponsor or from an investor. I'm a startup, and I want to bring a new product in the market in GB, just like a water. So my sponsor, who is going to invest 10 million or 200 million, would like to see that what is the market of this product. तो जब भी हम ये कंपटीशन करते हैं, business competitions, the very high emphasis we give is to finances and market. That, for example, why should I give you 1 million for this product? And if you say, okay, this product is very unique, agreed, then what is the market of this unique product? So the commercial viability or the commercial analysis would tell us that how this new product is going to create an advantage in the market, competitive advantage that the people should buy. There are 100 brands of water in the market at the moment. And if I bring a Karakoram spring water and I invest the money, the government would ask me that what new things you are bringing in this. So हमने कहा जी ये mineral water है, we are making it a WHO standard, PCWR certified, KIU certified, EPA certified. So we are bringing some strong attributes to the product And so the marketing strategy is very important. That at the moment we are developing some, for example, we are trying to make sure that how the students of marketing department can be engaged as sales force, and how they, for example, if we give them 10% commission. So these are the things we have to keep in mind, that developing a new product is not an issue, but the most important is to sell that product to the end users. And that would require a lot of marketing efforts. And this marketing efforts should be there in the feasibility study. ये नहीं है कि आप कहेंगे कि जी अब चीज तो हमने बनाई, अब बेचेंगे किस तरह, अब किसको बेचे. No, you have to have this question answered when you are developing the feasibility. And maybe some assumptions are not correct at that time, and when you go to the market you may come up with a new challenges, but the basic plan must be there, the feasibility must be there, that who is my target market, who is my competitor, what is the price. For example, in our water product, we surveyed the average price of the market, and then we fixed our price a bit lower, maybe 10% or 5% lower than the average market price. Now this is a pricing strategy. इस तरह तो नहीं है ना कि आप कहें जी मैं अपना प्रोडक्ट जो मार्केट से है आधे पे बेचूंगा, तो फिर आप कमाएंगे क्या, आपको अपनी जेब से लगाएंगे. आप कहें जी मैं उनसे 10% ज्यादा पे बेचना चाहता हूं, तो किस तरह compete करेंगे. सो यू हैव टू हैव अ स्ट्रेटजी थ्रू विच यू कैन कमर्शियली एंड मार्केट. तो ये इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. उसके लिए तमाम चीजें किसी वक्त आपको एक वो हम देख लेंगे किसी एक प्रोजेक्ट की जो फिजिबिलिटी कमर्शियल प्रोजेक्ट्स की, बिकॉज दिस मे नॉट बी डन इन दी PSDP प्रोजेक्ट्स. वहां पे तो सोशल बेनिफिट इज मोर इम्पॉर्टेंट. तो वहां पे तो शायद हम पैसा कमाने की बात नहीं करते, हम सोसाइटी को बेहतर बनाने की बात करते हैं. वी टॉक अबाउट दी education, healthcare, new infrastructure, socio-economic development. So there the monetary benefits may not be important, there may be social benefits may be more important. But commercial viability or commercial feasibility is more important when we are talking about the private sector investment. The financial analysis, Padhe ji?
Financial analysis involves assessment of financial impact, judgment of efficient resource use, assessment of incentives, provision of sound financing plan, coordinating of financial contribution.
Okay, so the simple question we need to answer is, why should I invest this money in your project? It's very important. If I give you 200 million for a 5-year project to invest, why should I give you this money? So you as a project proponent have to convince me that what I, by the end of the day, I'm going to earn from this project, what is the return payback period, what is the internal rate of return, how it is the net present value, and so on. So we normally, when we talk about the project, we develop the 3 fundamental documents. One is called income and expenditure statement. That, for example, when we start this project, what will be the income and expenditure for the first year? What will be, and if this is a 5-year project, then what will be the annual return and expenses? Then what will be the project cash flows, inflows and outflows? The money which is invested into the project, that is inflow, and the outflow, which is the return of the project. So how much money I would need to invest in year 1 and year 2, and how this would be giving me the return, the outflows. This is really very important. And the final is the balance sheet, that how the project will be going to create the assets and liabilities in the future. And then we have different techniques. I'll not discuss all these, but simply किसी वक्त इस पे थोड़ी सी बात कर लेंगे. That, for example, simple rate of return, that if I give you 20 million and you give me 25 million after 5 years, so the return would be 5 million, and the annual return would be 1 million per year for investment of 20 million. So I have to think about it. Then the break-even analysis, that, for example, if I'm producing toothpastes, and for every toothpaste I have certain cost and certain benefit, certain profit, then what would be the number of toothpaste I have to produce? For example, आपके वीकेंड स्कूल में हम जब ब्रेक इवन एनालिसिस करते हैं, हम ये देखते हैं कि किसी क्लास में कितने स्टूडेंट हो कि यूनिवर्सिटी का खर्चा पूरा हो जाए, उसके बाद प्रॉफिट शुरू. तो हमने कहा कि जिस क्लास में 20 स्टूडेंट्स होते हैं that normally meets the, और 20 से ज्यादा स्टूडेंट होंगे तो profit will be started. So before the break even you have a loss, and after the break even you have a profit. We will discuss this sometime. So we have the net present value and internal rate of return, financial ratio analysis. I think these are different tools. Some of you who are from management background, I don't know, आप है कोई MBA वगैरह का कोई अगर है तो, या BBA का?
जी सर, इकोनॉमिक्स एंड फाइनेंस में।
हाँ, तो आपने शायद ये कुछ टूल्स पढ़े हों फाइनेंशियल एनालिसिस में, फाइनेंशियल मैनेजमेंट में, बट सर्टेनली ऑल दीज आर नॉट वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट. किसी स्टेज पे हम एक प्रोजेक्ट की जब मैं उधर हूँगा तो ये टूल्स, एक दो टूल्स उस पे यूज कर लेंगे. एंड फाइनली यू विल स्टडी दिस कोर्स ऑन मॉडर्न टूल्स इन प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट. तो उसमें बहुत सारी एक्सेल पे आपको ये डॉक्टर अतीक साहब समझा भी देंगे कि हाउ टू डिटरमिन द IR थ्रू एक्सेल, हाउ टू डिटरमिन द बेनिफिट्स एंड सो ऑन. पढ़े जी.
Financial analysis of project based on social cost and feasibility. Contribution of the project to social welfare of the society. Effect of the project on foreign trade, exports, and effects on trend human resources. Direct and indirect impact on the environment. Techniques used for social change. Net value added. Distribution effect, poverty elevation, foreign exchange effect, sensitivity analysis, impact of project in case of cost and time or value. Risk assessment.
So as discussed that for social sector projects, there might be, we are not talking about the profit directly, there might be some social cost and social, for example, how the project would improve the foreign trade. For example, if we are improving the infrastructure between Hunza and Khunjarab, then how this would improve the trade between China and Pakistan. So that is exports and imports. And then how the people would be trained through this new project, and then indirect impact on the environment. So social benefits in cost benefit analysis for social projects, we may think about the net value added. For example, what is the total income increase by the society with this new project, how the poverty has been. पहले अगर हमारे पास 50% of the people in that village or region were below the poverty line, if this project, for example, आपका IFAD project है, ETI project है, how this project would bring more people empowered and how this would reduce the poverty. So this would be one of the social objective or return. Then how the new project would bring the foreign exchange. For example, if the cherry in export project is considered, maybe government don't earn directly from it, but certainly if a good quality cherry is exported to China, then the people, local people would start earning and it will bring international money, foreign currency to Pakistan. Sensitivity analysis means that how the project, if some of the exemptions are proved wrong, for example, पैसा आपको टाइम पे नहीं मिला, आपका मौसम खराब हो गया, आपकी कुछ और इश्यूज आ गए, जिस तरह के हमारे यहाँ बहुत सारे इस प्रोजेक्ट में इश्यूज आए, डिले हो गया, लोगों ने लाइन ऑर्डर सिचुएशन बन गई एंड सो ऑन, देन हाउ यू विल have the risk analysis and things like that. जी आगे जाए.
Economic feasibility. Viability of project over a period of time. Capital cost, working capital requirements, estimates of operating cost, depreciation of the taxes and profits.
Mainly the cost analysis, for example, how much money would you need for development phase and how much money you need for operational phase and so on. So the operational cost, working capital is really very important for the projects. And then once the project is completed, how the cost would be incurred, the operational cost and depreciation, taxes, and all these are important in the economic analysis. तो ये फिर आप पढ़ ले, इसमें डिफरेंट टाइप ऑफ कास्ट है. आगे जी.
Assessing economic feasibility, determine tangible recurring cost.
जी जी.
associated with ongoing use of system including certifications.
अब आपने एक यूनिवर्सिटी में कैंपस तो बना लिया जो हमारे पास the challenge we have at the moment that government gave us 200 million and we developed the new campus. But the issue is now the operational cost because we need, for all these campuses, we need at least 100 million to run the campuses. So, and the basic assumption was that by the time the project is over, we will have something like 600 to 700 students, and these students will then generate enough income to run the campus. Now, this is really very important because if you bring the new facilities and these facilities are not sustainable in terms of cost, so you try to see. मिसाल के तौर पे इन्होंने एग्जाम्पल एक सॉफ्टवेयर प्रोजेक्ट का दिया है एक सॉफ्टवेयर आपने एक LMS बना लिया फॉर एग्जांपल या आपने एक ERP बना लिया एंटरप्राइज रिसोर्स प्लान अब उसको आपने जब डिप्लॉय किया यू नीड अ लॉट ऑफ ऑपरेशनल कास्ट लाइक मेंटेनेंस कास्ट incremental of storage expertise. You may need a new databases. You may need new hard disks, and then upgrades. You would need to upgrade the existing because the platform which we are using cannot be static. So you need to upgrade the system, and then consumables like आपको printers चाहिए, आपको उनके plugins चाहिए, आपको Wi-Fi. तो वो चीजें जब आप extend करेंगे उस facility को बाकी departments में बाकी जगहों पे तो you need. So for operational phase, we need a lot of cost. Intangible cost वो है कि जो for example आपकी अगर ये नया सॉफ्टवेयर जो है वो क्वालिटी का ना हो और लोग जो है उसको इस्तेमाल करने के बाद they are not happy, they are not satisfied, then it will bring a lot of indirect cost in terms of loyalty of the customer may be lost and so on. आगे जाए जी ऑपरेशनल फिजिबिलिटी
Operational feasibility. How likely is it that system can be used to meet desired objectives? That is, for example, functional electric line workers make up 90% of production staff in the force. System work at our facility.
So operational feasibility जो आपकी technical feasibility में cover हो जाएगी that once the project is completed how the various operations can be managed and what are the challenges. Schedule feasibility जो है मैंने पहले कहा था कि ये भी टेक्निकल का जी जो टाइम आपको दिया गया है उसमें किस तरह आप प्रोजेक्ट को कंप्लीट करेंगे लीगल एंड कंट्रैक्चुअल feasibility कि अगर कोई आपको इंटरनेशनल प्रोजेक्ट में जाना है then what can be the legal challenges, what can be the contractual challenges. Political feasibility, how the project would be affected, the political changes, ethical feasibility and so on. तो इस पे ज्यादा हम बात नहीं करेंगे. Lastly, जो है that environmental impact assessment of projects, which is environmental feasibility. ये पढ़े जी.
EIA is a systematic process to identify, assess, and manage the potential environmental effects of the proposed development or activity. The findings of the EIA process are presented in an environmental statement. The process and findings inform decision makers, for example, local planning authorities, of the likely environmental consequences of the proposal. The EIA process gathers data and evaluates effects on a range of technical topic areas that are specified in the legislation. These include air population, soil, fauna, flora, water, climate factors, material acids, including architectural and archaeological heritage, landscape and interrelationships between these factors. The findings from evaluation of each of these topic areas linked together provide a picture of the effects of the proposal as a whole.
So simply we discussed that we try to see that how these new projects are going to impact negatively or positively the environment, and then we try to see that how can we reduce the negative impacts or risks and how can we exploit the positive impacts which are the opportunities. With the better planning we can reduce the impacts, the negative impacts, and we can enhance the positive impacts. And normally आपने पहले भी पूछा था कि जब भी एक प्रोजेक्ट बनता है we have three kinds of list. मैंने पहले कहा कि for some projects we don't need any environmental assessment. For example, हम एक स्कूल बिल्डिंग बना रहे हैं विच इज नॉट वेरी लार्ज, सो देयर may नॉट बी नीड ऑफ एनी इन्वायरमेंटल असेसमेंट। कुछ प्रोजेक्ट्स ऐसे हैं जिसमें हम आईईई की बात करते हैं कि जस्ट अ स्मॉल स्टडी ऑफ इन्वायरमेंट, लेकिन मिसाल के तौर पर एक नया टाउनशिप बना रहे हैं हम। टाउनशिप के अंदर अगर आप 10,000 लोगों के लिए, तो देयर वुड बी लॉट ऑफ challenges in terms of soil erosion, there will be challenges in terms of sanitation, water availability, and all these, and that would bring a lot of challenges. So for that, definitely you would need to have a detailed environmental assessment, which is EIA. So depending on the nature of project, so the first thing is that, for example, how this EIA would help us. Number one, it is a legal compliance. Simple is that for many projects we do in any part of the world, environmental assessment is a legal requirement. So you cannot overlook it. If this is not done, you can't start the project. The second opportunity of this is that avoids delay in legal challenges, because uh, if the environmental assessment is done, people know about the challenges, and the environmental planning is done, and everything is, and people know about it, then the things are not delayed and people would support it. Informed decision making, that the decision with the consultation of public, the stakeholder, they would make a decision finally which is more appropriate for the environment. And finally, it improve the environmental design and ensure resources are used sustainable way. So this is how ये जो आपको नजर आ रहा है, मैं थोड़ा इसको बड़ा कर लूंगा अगर, ये वो प्रोसेस है जो मैं आपको ये प्रोसेस है। फॉर एग्जांपल, द फर्स्ट स्क्रीनिंग। स्क्रीनिंग ये है कि आप पहले ये देखें कि जो प्रोजेक्ट है उस प्रोजेक्ट में किस लेवल की स्टडी की जरूरत है, क्या उसमें जरूरत है भी कि नहीं। तो गवर्नमेंट जो इन्वायरमेंटल प्रोटेक्शन एजेंसी है, उन्होंने लिस्ट बनाई है कि जी ये कैटेगरी ए प्रोजेक्ट है, इसमें जरूरत नहीं है, बी है। अब स्क्रीनिंग के बाद, फॉर एग्जांपल, हम नलतर हाईवे की बात कर रहे थे कि जी नलतर हाईवे की जब हमने स्क्रीनिंग की तो हमें पता चला कि जी 5 या 6 ऐसे चैलेंजेस है जिसकी वजह से हम इसको इन्वायरमेंटली एड्रेस करेंगे। फॉर एग्जांपल, लैंडस्लाइड्स हो सकती है वहां पे, फॉरेस्ट कवर जो है वो हमारा डैमेज हो सकता है कंस्ट्रक्शन में, वी कैन फॉर एग्जांपल कट दी ट्रीज। वैसे मैं एक बात करता हूँ, कोई कंस्ट्रक्शन के दौरान कोई नॉइस पोल्यूशन का इशू होता है, लोगों की सेफ्टी का इशू हो सकता है कि जब हम कटिंग कर रहे हो तो नीचे आबादियों में जो लोग रह रहे हैं उन पे कोई स्लाइड्स वगैरह न जाए। इसी तरह एक्सीडेंट साइट पे खतरा हो सकता है। बाद में जब आपका ये रोड बने तो हो सकता है कि स्लाइड्स हो, एक्सीडेंट्स हो। तो ये सारी चीजें हम जब करेंगे तो हम 4-5 मेजर चीजों को स्क्रीन करेंगे कि जी हम इन 4-5, हम हर चीज को तो जाहिर है एनवायरनमेंट में ठीक नहीं कर सकते, कुछ चीजें कम होंगी, कुछ ज्यादा होंगी। उसके बाद हम स्कोपिंग पे जाते हैं कि स्कोपिंग का मतलब ये कि आप हमने कहा जी 5 चीजों को हमने देखना है। पोल्यूशन को देखना है, हमने नॉइस को देखना है, वाटर क्वालिटी पे क्या असर पड़ेगा वो देखना है, लोकल जो हैबिटाट है लोगों की उस पे, जो एनिमल और प्लांट्स है उस पे क्या फर्क। ये 4-5 चीजें हमने कहा कि इस प्रोजेक्ट के दौरान या इसके बाद या मसाइल हो सकते हैं। तो उसको अब हम स्कोप करेंगे। स्कोपिंग मीन्स दैट वी नाउ वांट टू ब्रिंग इट इन अ वेरी डिटेल्ड एनालिसिस। कि फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर हम ये देखना चाहते हैं कि जी इस प्रोजेक्ट के की वजह से कोई क्वालिटी इफेक्ट हो सकती है, पानी की क्वालिटी नीचे कटिंग हो जाएगी तो दरिया में पानी, तो हमें फिर इस वक्त जो पानी है उसकी क्वालिटी क्या है, इसको हम कहते हैं स्कोपिंग और बेसलाइन। और ये जब सारा हो जाए तो फिर उसके बाद हम ये देखते हैं कि जी असेसमेंट के जी प्रोजेक्ट आएगा तो उसके बाद क्या मसला हो सकता है, और फाइनली उसके लिए फिर हम रिपोर्ट्स बनाते हैं और हम ये देखते हैं कि जी किस तरह हम इसको मिटिगेट कर सकते हैं। और फिर जब ये अप्रूव हो जाए हमारा प्रोजेक्ट या ये अप्रूव हो जाए तो हमने मॉनिटरिंग फिर करनी है। ये सबसे जो हमारे पास चैलेंज है वो ये है कि हम EIS तो बहुत अच्छे बनाते हैं लेकिन उसकी मॉनिटरिंग नहीं करते। मिसाल के तौर पे हमने कहा कि जी हम नलतर हाईवे जब बनाएंगे तो हम कोई 1,000 नए 100 पौधे काटेंगे और 2,000 नए पौधे लगाएंगे ताकि एफॉरेस्टेशन हो जाए। ये हमने इस बुनियाद पे तो हमने प्रोजेक्ट अप्रूव करा दिया, लेकिन जब प्रोजेक्ट एग्जीक्यूशन होता है तो नो बॉडी टेक्स केयर्स। उसके लिए एनवायरमेंटल मॉनिटरिंग EMP जो है, इन्वायरमेंटल मैनेजमेंट या मॉनिटरिंग प्लान होना चाहिए और उसको इम्प्लीमेंट। अब जो वर्ल्ड बैंक के प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं, जिस तरह ये आप देख रहे हैं ना, IMF के लोग आते हैं और अपनी मॉनिटरिंग करते हैं कि जी जो इंडिकेटर्स गवर्नमेंट ने कमिट की थी कि हम टैक्स रेशो को टू GDP रेशो बढ़ाएंगे, हम ये करेंगे, हम सब्सिडीज खत्म करेंगे, ये तो वो मॉनिटरिंग जब करते हैं नेक्स्ट इंस्टॉलमेंट को रिलीज करने के लिए, तो वो आके देखते हैं कि जी वो जो कमिटमेंट आपने की थी गवर्नमेंट ऑफ पाकिस्तान ने, वो किस हद तक फुलफिल हुई है। तो जब भी एनवायरमेंटल मॉनिटरिंग होती है वर्ल्ड बैंक के प्रोजेक्ट्स में, तो हम ये देखते हैं कि वो जो एक प्लान हमने बनाया था उसके अंदर क्या क्या चीजें हुई है और क्या नहीं हुई, और नहीं हुई तो उसकी क्या वजह थी। कोई इस दौरान कोई एक्सीडेंट तो नहीं हुआ, कोई स्लाइड्स बड़ा आया है तो उसके पानी की क्वालिटी पे क्या असर पड़ा है, उसके लिए क्या प्रिवेंटिव मेजर्स की गई है। तो ये सारी चीजें मॉनिटरिंग पे हम फिर एक मॉनिटरिंग रिपोर्ट बनाते हैं, उसमें रिकमेंडेशन देते हैं कि जी ये चीजें तो अच्छी हो रही है, ये अच्छी नहीं हो रही है, सो देयरफॉर यू नीड टू टेक केयर ऑफ इट एंड यू हैव टू हैव द प्रिवेंटिव मेजर्स। तो मॉनिटरिंग जो है दैट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर द एनवायरमेंटल सस्टेनेबिलिटी। तो यहाँ पे मेरी बात खत्म होगी। बहरहाल यू कैन डिस्कस एनीथिंग, क्वेश्चन, द हाउस इज ओपन फॉर क्वेश्चंस। आई थिंक वी 5 to 10 minutes हमारे पास है।
One question.
जी जी।
Sir, I have two projects currently that are under construction. One is in Gilgit and the second one is in Yasi. And same project, both projects have same crowd area, like 48 project city. The progress of physical progress of the project that is in Gilgit, that's fine, sir. But in Yasi, due to different challenges, the progress is slow. But usually the donor is asking for the delays. My question is, is there any international law or is there any Pakistan Engineering Council rule that we can for donor
For what?
for the delays?
Should I respond to this question?
आप जवाब दे दें जी, आप जवाब दे दें।
सर इसलिए कि ये दोनों प्रोजेक्ट्स, एक यासीन में बना, एक गिलगित में बना, दोनों की फिजिबिलिटी सेम बनी, दोनों का कवर्ड एरिया सेम है, टीम सेम होगी। अब आप बताएं कि यासीन में टोटल 3 महीने तो वर्किंग सीजन होता है, तो उसकी प्रोजेक्ट की प्रोग्रेस क्या हो?
You have answer in your question. आपने क्वेश्चन में आंसर भी बता
Yes, sir. I have the answers. मैं तो donor को बता देता हूँ।
देखिए, the main issue is with feasibility. I mean, the main issue is नहीं, आप इस तरफ सीआर साहब, आप इस तरफ देखिए ना, क्वेश्चन को डिस्कस करते हैं। देखिए, द क्वेश्चन इज that you have a different operational conditions for the projects, but initially the assumptions were that you will have the same amount in the same time for both the projects. Now, fundamentally, this assumption is not correct. The proposal of the project which you have developed is imperfect because you could not, when we talk about GB and when we talk about Islamabad, we always say that in GB the project would take 3 to 4 years. But the same project, when we do in central Punjab, in Lahore, we say it would be done in 1 or 2 years. So the first thing is that your assumption of the time or whether or this was wrong, and that is the feasibility or the project appraisal was not done good. So you have the answer in your question that you have bad weather, you have very little working season, and so that should be part of the feasibility analysis, and you should tell the sponsor that, for example, when we talk about the extension in time to the donor or to the sponsor, we submit the climatic data, we submit the administrative data. For example, the roads are closed due to the work, and all this data is then submitted to the sponsor with the request that the time extension may be granted. So all this data, contemporary data, PC is very clear about it. You should have the contemporary data. For example, if the road is closed for 1 month or 6 months, there is a blasting or there is a cutting and the traffic has been halted, and then again you have early snowfall, and you have a little. So all this data should be officially available from the reliable sources, and based on that, you can submit a case to the sponsor that the time extension is genuine, it should be done. हमारे यहाँ एक बड़ी अजीब सी बात है, to be very frank, in project managers in general and in engineers particular, we don't maintain the evidences. We don't maintain the evidences. We don't have the evidences of the. तो फिर हम बात जब करते हैं तो हवाई बातें करते हैं जी मौसम खराब. ये मौसम तो हर जगह खराब होता है. For a particular project site, you need to have a climatic data. You need to have a proper data जो जिसको आप base बनाते हुए अपने. So you can take up the case with your sponsor that look, this is the difference in the weather. We had early snowfall. We had late. Opening of the road. So we had a very little 3 to 4 months or 5 months maximum working season. Then there was Glove event. Then there was a traffic congestion. Then there was a traffic delays due to the opening of new road and so on. And based on that, I think you can develop a very good, strong case, and you can request the sponsor for the time extension. And normally they do it. They do it. It's not, for example, we have taken up with the university for faculty engineering that this project was halted for a very long time. We had the challenges. So please extend the time from 4 to 6 years. So they have agreed, the planning commission has agreed based on the ground realities. But for all these things, we have contemporary evidences. We have made a very comprehensive case to the government that we need to extend. And so I think the data would convince the people about that. ठीक है जी? Okay, any other question, any other comment from your experience? Okay, thank you very much. I think अभी हमारे पास I don't know मैं भी अपना LMS देख रहा था. आप में कुछ लोग LMS पे रजिस्टर हो गए कि नहीं?
रजिस्ट्रेशन नंबर नहीं मिला.
Because I couldn't see the new course. पुराने courses में मेरे हैं, लेकिन मैंने ये अपना LMS just to share with you the template of my LMS. इसका जो main, तो इसमें जो LMS के अंदर मैं देख रहा था कि नया जो कोर्स है वो अभी तक इस सेमेस्टर का कोर्स इसमें अपलोड नहीं हुआ. तो इसके व्हाट इज द प्रॉब्लम? कैन यू somebody, आप में से कोई खुर्शीद साहब को बुला सकते हैं so that I can ask from him what is the
इसरार is here.
Israr, what is the problem? Why these ये क्यों इतना टाइम लग रहा है? रजिस्ट्रेशन तो एक हफ्ते में फाइनल होना चाहिए ना. अब इसके लिए हमें क्या कोई रॉकेट साइंस चाहिए?
उसमें काम कर रहे हैं सर, इस वीक में कर देंगे वो.
हाँ ना, ये क्योंकि हमारा एक्सेस नहीं है, फिर ये सारी चीजें मैं अपलोड कर दूंगा. दूसरा है कि जो लास्ट कोर्स हमने पढ़ाया था प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट का, वो फिर हम इंपोर्ट इधर करें ताकि वो चीजें इनके साथ फिर शेयर हो जाए ना. ये जरा फिर आईटी वालों.
और एक प्रॉब्लम है, उन्होंने ये भी बताया कि स्टूडेंट्स ने अभी तक फी नहीं दी है, तो इसलिए हम रजिस्ट्रेशन नंबर रिलाट कर सकते हैं.
नहीं, वो तो अलग बात है ना. जिन्होंने दी है उनका तो इशू नहीं होना चाहिए ना, नंबर वन. और वो तब होगा कि जब आपको रजिस्ट्रेशन नंबर दिए जाएंगे, दोज हैव ऑलरेडी पेड द ड्यूज, तो आपके फिर नंबर जो है LMS के थ्रू फिर हम अटेंडेंस भी LMS पे लेंगे ना. और फिर ये दूसरी बात ये कि ये आपको जितना लेक्चर्स हैं, जितना टीचिंग लर्निंग रिसोर्सेज असाइनमेंट्स, ये सारी वहां पे आएंगी. वहां ही आप फिर इसको सबमिट करेंगे. तो ये फिर इट विल सेव टाइम फॉर ऑन बोथ साइड्स. और जो भी आपके लेक्चर्स हैं, जो भी सारी चीजें हैं, वो आपके LMS पर अपलोड होगी. ऑलरेडी हमारा पिछले कोर्स की चीजें हैं, इसमें नई चीजें फिर मैं ऐड कर लूंगा. वी विल इम्पोर्ट, उसको हम इम्पोर्ट कहते हैं. we'll import that course here for you, and then we will add the new things, new learning and new experiences. So हमारा जो LMS है, that is from admission to graduation, is a complete robust system. इसमें सारी चीजें आपकी पड़ी होंगी जब तक आप यहाँ से ग्रेजुएट नहीं करते. पिछले रिजल्ट्स, पिछले असाइनमेंट्स, वो सारी. So you can even revisit that at later stage if you want to study something. तो दैट्स व्हाई वी ऑलवेज फोकस ऑन एलएमएस के जी एलएमएस पे आप आए, स्टूडेंट्स भी आ जाएं और फैकल्टी भी, और अभी तो खैर अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह मेजॉरिटी ऑफ दी स्टूडेंट एंड टीचर्स। आपका चूंकि अभी पहला सेमेस्टर है तो इंशाल्लाह ये सवाल यार दिस शुड बी डन बिफोर 10th ऑफ दिस मंथ, ठीक है जी। नेक्स्ट क्लास से पहले ये सारी चीजें क्लियर होनी चाहिए, सो दैट आई कैन अपलोड import all the teaching learning material at the LMS। इनके लिए भी आसानी हो ना, ये भी अपनी चीजें डाउनलोड करे, ये फिर सीआर को देने की फिर जरूरत नहीं है ना, हर आदमी अपना वहां से डाउनलोड करे जो उसको चाहिए, ठीक है जी।
Right, sir.
थैंक यू वेरी मच, थैंक यू।
Thank you.